I should have seen his face coming like a storm, but instead it struck me like lightning. 1 second, I was juggling files and a lukewarm coffee. The next, my entire past walked into the room wearing a tailored suit and the kind of confidence that made people move out of his way. And God, wasn't it just the cruelest joke that the man who once shattered me in front of an entire graduation crowd now stood at the head of the table, introduced as my new boss? I wanted to laugh, or maybe scream, or maybe both. Ethan Cole, my first love, my first heartbreak, the boy who once held my entire future in his hands and crushed it like fragile glass. And here he was in the flesh, older, sharper, impossibly more put together than the boy I remembered. But those eyes, those deep steel blue eyes, hadn't changed. They caught mine, lingered for half a second too long, and the air in the room seemed to choke me. It was supposed to be a normal Monday morning. Meetings, deadlines, office politics. Not him. The truth was, I hadn't thought about Ethan in years, or at least I had convinced myself of that. Life had been about surviving in New York, paying bills, fighting my way up the ladder in an industry that devoured people whole. I didn't have time to nurse old wounds, or so I told myself. But seeing him now, standing there like some cruel reminder of what could have been, I felt every scar inside me rip open. "Ladies and gentlemen," our director was saying, his voice far away, muffled against the pounding in my ears. "Meet our new division head, Ethan Cole. He'll be leading the transition project." Applause filled the room. My hands stayed glued to my lap. Ethan nodded politely, the corners of his mouth curving in that same restrained smile I remembered too well. God, how many nights had I fallen asleep to the memory of that smile before it turned into the last thing I saw before my world ended on graduation day. The memory burned like acid. I had been 21, dressed in my cap and gown, ready to walk across the stage with the boy I thought I would spend forever with. Ethan and I had made plans. College sweethearts who would move to New York, share an apartment, chase dreams, build a life. I had believed in it with a naive certainty only young love carries. But hours before the ceremony, Ethan pulled me aside, his face pale, his voice low and steady. "I can't do this anymore." Those words haunted me, still haunted me. I remembered begging him to explain, to at least give me a reason. Instead, he left me with nothing but silence and the crushing weight of humiliation when he didn't even look at me during the ceremony. And now, years later, he was back. Not as the boy who left me broken, but as the man in charge of my career. "Caleb," my coworker nudged me, snapping me back to the present. "You okay?" I blinked, forcing my expression into something neutral. "Yeah, just long weekend." But my chest was a battlefield. The meeting wrapped up with Ethan outlining objectives, his voice calm, authoritative, smooth. Everyone scribbled notes, nodded, engaged with enthusiasm. I sat there like a statue, my pen hovering over paper, catching maybe half of what he said. When it ended, I thought maybe I could escape unnoticed, slip out before he even acknowledged me. But life apparently had other plans. "Caleb," his voice stopped me cold, sharp as glass against my name. I turned slowly. He was closer now, standing across the conference table, his gaze steady, unyielding. For a split second, something flickered across his face. Recognition, regret, maybe even pain, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "Good to see you again," he said, his tone maddeningly professional, like we were nothing but colleagues shaking hands for the first time. I wanted to laugh again, or cry, or ask him if he had any idea what those 4 words meant to me. Instead, I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. "Yeah, you too." It wasn't good to see him. It was torture. The first week with Ethan as my boss was hell disguised in crisp shirts and late-night deadlines. He ran the team with precision, his standards high but fair. People admired him, respected him, even liked him. And me? I hated how easily he slid back into my world. I hated that I noticed the way his sleeves rolled up when he got too focused, exposing the veins in his forearms. I hated that his cologne lingered in the conference room after he left, stirring memories I had tried so hard to bury. I hated that my heart still betrayed me, racing every time his gaze brushed mine. I hated most of all that I wanted answers. Because he never gave me one. Not then. Not now. On Friday evening, as the office emptied out, I stayed behind, trying to lose myself in spreadsheets. My eyes burned, my shoulders ached, but the silence was safer than going home to my lonely apartment and the endless thoughts circling my brain. I didn't hear him until his shadow stretched across my desk. "You still work late," Ethan said softly. I froze. That voice, that tone, too familiar. "Someone has to pick up the slack," I replied without looking at him, my words sharper than I intended. He didn't flinch. "Caleb, don't." I finally looked up, meeting his eyes head-on. The years had carved lines into his face, but those eyes, they still knew how to cut through me. "Don't say my name like that." His jaw tightened. Silence settled between us, thick and unbearable. "Why are you here?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. He drew in a breath. "Because this is my job." I shook my head. "No. Why are you here, in my life, after everything? Why now?" His expression faltered. For the first time all week, the mask slipped. I saw something raw there. Guilt, sorrow, something close to longing. But instead of an answer, he only said, "Can we talk? Outside of work?" The part of me that had been waiting years for that question screamed yes. The part of me that remembered the way he broke me wanted to slam the door in his face. So I did the only thing I could. I grabbed my bag, brushed past him and said, "Don't bother." But even as I left the office, heart pounding, I knew it wasn't over. Not even close. The weekend should have been my refuge, but instead it was a prison built out of memories. Every time I tried to distract myself, cleaning, grocery shopping, binge-watching old sitcoms, I kept seeing him. Ethan's face, Ethan's voice, Ethan's eyes. I hated that I remembered the exact way he used to brush his fingers against mine under the cafeteria table, like we were the only two people who mattered in the entire world. I hated that I remembered how he looked at me like I was a promise worth keeping. And I hated most of all that I still wondered what could have been if he hadn't walked away. By Sunday night, I convinced myself that Monday would be different. I keep it professional, cold, unshakable. He was just my boss. Nothing more, nothing less. That resolve lasted exactly until 9:15 a.m. "Caleb, can you join me in my office for a quick discussion?" Ethan's voice carried across the open floor, calm but firm. Dozens of heads turned. My coworkers glanced at me with curious smiles, probably assuming I was getting praised, maybe given an important task. If only they knew. I followed him, my pulse thrumming. His office was sleek, minimalistic, walls lined with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the Manhattan skyline. He gestured toward a chair. "Close the door," he said. I hesitated, then obeyed. He leaned against his desk, arms folded, watching me with that unreadable expression. "Why did you walk out Friday?" I almost laughed. "Seriously? You're asking me that?" "Yes," he said simply. I shook my head, my frustration spilling over. "Because you don't get to stroll back into my life, act like nothing happened, and then ask me to grab coffee like we're long-lost friends. You broke me, Ethan. Do you remember that? Or was it so easy to forget?" His jaw tightened. "I didn't forget." "Then why?" My voice cracked. Why did you do it? Why leave me on graduation day without even giving me a reason? Do you have any idea what that did to me? He looked away, out the window, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost hoarse. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me? I laughed bitterly. From what? From being loved? From being happy? He turned back, and for a moment, I saw something raw in him. Fear, regret. From me, from my family, from everything I couldn't give you. The words hit me like a riddle I didn't want to solve. What the hell does that mean? I demanded. But instead of answering, he shook his head. Not here. Not like this. I stood, my hands trembling. Then don't expect me to keep playing this game. You either tell me the truth, or you stay out of my way. For a long moment, he just stared at me, like he was fighting a war inside himself. Then he whispered, Dinner. Tonight. Let me explain. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to walk away and never look back. But the part of me that had spent years haunted by unanswered questions, the part that still ached for him, won. Fine, I said, but this is your last chance. We met at a quiet Italian restaurant downtown, one of those dimly lit places where the clinking of wine glasses felt like background music to heartbreak. He arrived in a charcoal suit, no tie, sleeves rolled up. Always immaculate, always collected. Meanwhile, my hands wouldn't stop shaking under the table. We ordered. I didn't taste a thing. Talk, I said flatly once the waiter left. He exhaled slowly, his gaze steady but heavy with something I couldn't name. You deserve to know why I ended it. I leaned back, arms crossed, waiting. My father found out about us, he said. The words froze me. He cornered me that morning, Ethan continued, his voice low. Told me if I didn't end things with you, he'd make sure your scholarship was revoked, your name blacklisted in the industry before you even started. He had connections, Caleb. He had power. And I knew he'd follow through. I stared at him, my throat dry. So you what? Sacrificed us? I chose your future over my happiness, he whispered. The anger inside me twisted into something more complicated. Messier, you didn't even tell me. You didn't give me a choice. I know. His eyes glistened in the candlelight. And I regret it every single day. I thought I was doing the right thing. But all I did was break the only person I ever loved. The words hung between us, fragile and unbearable. You loved me? I asked, my voice barely audible. Still do, he admitted. The air left my lungs like a punch. The rest of dinner blurred. I don't remember the food, or the wine, or the soft hum of the restaurant. All I remember was the weight of his confession, pressing against every scar he had left behind. When we walked outside, the city was alive with lights and noise, but for me the world narrowed to him. Caleb, he said gently, I don't expect forgiveness overnight, but I need you to know I never stopped caring. I wanted to scream. I wanted to kiss him. I wanted to do both at once. Instead, I said, you don't get to walk back into my life and say that like it erases everything. His shoulders sagged. I know, but maybe it can start to heal. We stood there in silence, the city rushing past us, two men caught between the past and the possibility of a future neither of us had the courage to reach for yet. Finally, I shook my head. Good night, Ethan. I walked away, heart pounding, his voice echoing in my head. Still do. The following week was torture in its own way. Now that I knew the truth, or at least part of it, ignoring him became impossible. Every meeting, every passing glance carried new weight. I noticed the way he lingered near me, how his tone softened when he said my name, how he almost reached for me but stopped himself every time. And I hated that my heart betrayed me by wanting him closer. One late night, I found myself alone in the office again, buried in spreadsheets. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, when his voice broke the silence. "You shouldn't work so late," Ethan said softly. I didn't look up. "Neither should you." He walked closer, stopping just behind my chair. I could feel the warmth of him, the gravity of his presence. "Caleb," he murmured. "I meant what I said, about still loving you." My breath caught. Slowly, I turned to face him. He was inches away, his expression raw, stripped of the usual mask he wore in front of others. "Don't," I whispered, though my body leaned toward him despite myself. "Don't say that unless you mean it." "I mean it," he said, "every word." And before I could stop myself, I closed the distance. The kiss was desperate, angry, and heartbreakingly tender all at once. Years of pain and longing collided in that moment, burning through every wall I had built around my heart. His hands cupped my face, mine clutched at his shirt, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, I whispered, "This doesn't fix everything." "No," he agreed, his forehead resting against mine. "But maybe it's a start." I wish I could say everything was perfect after that the kiss erased the past and carved us a clean slate. But reality wasn't a fairy tale. The truth was I didn't trust him. Not yet, not fully, and part of me wasn't sure I ever could. But the other truth, I didn't want to let him go again. And maybe that was enough for now. If falling back into his arms felt like a storm, then the days that followed were the uneasy calm before it broke. Ethan and I didn't talk about what happened in the office. We didn't talk about the kiss. But we didn't ignore it either. It lived between us, unspoken, electric, dangerous. Every time his hand brushed mine during a meeting, every time his gaze lingered too long, I felt it. So did he. We were two magnets pulled together by something stronger than logic, stronger than the past, stronger than the fear gnawing at both of us. But fear was still there. Because I knew this couldn't last. Not in an office where people noticed everything. Not in a world that still had claws for men like us. And certainly not with the shadow of his family looming over him. It started with whispers. "Caleb and Mr. Cole seem close, don't they?" a coworker murmured in the break room one morning, not realizing I was standing just around the corner. "Yeah," another voice replied, amused. "Kind of unusual for the boss to spend so much time with one employee. Makes you wonder." Their laughter burned in my ears. I wanted to step out, to confront them, but instead I walked away, my chest tight. At lunch, I caught Ethan's eye across the cafeteria. He must have read my expression, because he excused himself from his group and found me outside by the vending machines. "What happened?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "People are starting to notice." His jaw clenched. "Let them." "No, Ethan," I snapped. "You don't get it. This isn't just office gossip. This is my reputation, my career. Do you have any idea how hard I've fought to get here? To be taken seriously?" His eyes softened, but his voice stayed firm. "And you think I don't know what's at stake? I've spent my entire life living in the shadow of what people say. I'm tired of it, Caleb. Tired of hiding." The word hung there between us, hiding. I swallowed hard. "You didn't fight for us before." His face twisted like I had struck him. "I know, and I regret it every day. But I'm not that boy anymore. I won't run this time." And I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the part of me that still carried the scars of graduation day screamed otherwise. That Friday, he asked me to meet him after work. Not at a restaurant, not at some quiet corner of the city, but at his apartment. I hesitated at his door, heart pounding. But when he opened it, the sight of him in a plain black t-shirt and jeans, his hair a little messy from running his hands through it, disarmed me completely. "Come in," he said softly. His place was modern, polished, but not cold. Books lined the shelves, a guitar leaned against the wall, and a faint scent of coffee lingered in the air. "Nice place," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He smiled faintly. "It's just a place. It doesn't feel like home." His eyes locked on mine. "Not unless you're here." And just like that, my resolve crumbled. We didn't make it to the couch. His hands were on me the second the door shut, urgent and trembling, like he was terrified I might vanish if he let go. Our mouths crashed together, the kiss rough, hungry, years of longing pouring out in one desperate act. "God, I missed you," he murmured against my lips. I wanted to tell him I missed him too, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I kissed him harder, letting my body say what my pride wouldn't. Later, tangled in his sheets, his arm draped across me, silence stretched between us. Not uncomfortable, but heavy with everything unsaid. "Caleb," he whispered into the dark, "I need you to believe me. I need you to believe that I'll fight this time. For you. For us." I closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope. Hope, however, is fragile. The following Monday, my life crashed again. It happened during a team meeting. Ethan was outlining project timelines when his phone buzzed. Normally, he ignored it, but this time he froze when he saw the name on the screen. His expression darkened, his jaw tightening. "Excuse me," he muttered before leaving the room. The rest of us continued the discussion, but my eyes kept flicking toward the door. 15 minutes later, he returned, mask firmly in place, but I saw it, the flicker of unease in his eyes. After the meeting, I cornered him in the hallway. "What was that?" "Nothing," he said too quickly. "Ethan," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It was my father." The name alone sent a chill down my spine. "What did he want?" I asked. Ethan hesitated. "He knows. About us." My stomach dropped. "How?" "I don't know," he admitted, his voice low. "But he made it clear. He'll do everything in his power to destroy me. And you." The air around us thickened, the walls of the office suddenly suffocating. "So what now?" I whispered. He looked at me, eyes burning with determination I had never seen before. "Now we stop letting him control us. I'm done living in his shadow." "Ethan." "No." He cut me off, his voice steady. "I won't lose you again." But his words, as powerful as they were, couldn't erase the gnawing fear inside me. Because I had seen this before, the power of his family, the way they pulled strings in silence. And I wasn't sure love alone could withstand it. The storm broke faster than either of us expected. 2 days later, I received an anonymous email. It contained photos, grainy but clear enough, of Ethan and me leaving his apartment together. One showed us standing too close, another captured the faint outline of our hands brushing. The subject line read, "Does HR know about this?" My chest tightened, nausea rising. Someone was watching us. I rushed to Ethan's office, slamming the door shut behind me. "Look!" I shoved my phone in his face. His eyes narrowed as he scrolled through the images, his expression darkening with each one. "Who the hell?" he muttered, fists clenching. "This could ruin me," I snapped. "Do you get that? If this goes to HR, I'm done. They'll say I slept my way into this position. They'll say I can't be trusted." His eyes locked on mine, blazing with anger. Not at me, but at whoever dared to do this. "I'll handle it." "Handle it?" I laughed bitterly. "You can't even handle your father. How the hell are you going to handle this? The words slipped out before I could stop them. His face fell, wounded. You really think that little of me? I swallowed hard, regret clawing at me. I don't know what to think anymore. For a long moment, we stood in silence, both of us bleeding in ways words couldn't bandage. Finally, he said, "Then let me prove it. Let me show you I'm not that boy anymore. But you have to trust me, Caleb. Just once. Trust me." And against every instinct screaming at me to run, I nodded. That night, he took me somewhere unexpected. Not a restaurant, not a bar, but a quiet house in Brooklyn. "My sister lives here," he explained as we stood on the porch. Before I could ask more, the door opened, and a woman in her 30s threw her arms around him. "Ethan, it's been too long." Then she turned to me with a warm smile. "You must be Caleb. He's told me about you." I froze. "He has?" Her smile widened knowingly. "Oh, plenty." Inside, the house was cozy, filled with family photos and the smell of fresh bread. For the first time, I saw Ethan in a different light. Not the boss, not the man haunted by his father's shadow, but just a brother, a son, a human being with roots and stories I had never known. Later, as we sat on the back porch sipping wine, his sister disappeared inside, leaving us alone under the stars. "Why bring me here?" I asked. "Because I wanted you to see I'm not hiding anymore," he said. "Not from you, not from my family, not from anyone." And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I still loved him. With every broken piece of me, I still loved him. But love doesn't erase fear. The next morning, another email arrived. This one wasn't anonymous. It was from HR. "Caleb, we need to discuss a matter regarding potential conflict of interest. Please report to our office today." My hands shook as I read it, the walls closing in. Someone had tipped them off. Someone wanted to see me burn. And I had a sickening feeling I knew exactly who it was. His father. The HR office was cold, too bright, sterile in the way all corporate interrogation rooms seemed to be. I sat in a stiff chair across from a woman in a navy suit who smiled politely but never once softened her eyes. A folder lay on the table between us. I already knew what was inside. "Caleb," she began, folding her hands neatly, "concerns have been raised about your relationship with Mr. Cole. Specifically, that it may constitute a conflict of interest." Her words fell like stones. My pulse thudded in my ears. "Concerns from who?" I asked, though I knew. "That's confidential," she replied smoothly. My chest tightened. His father. Of course. This was exactly how powerful men destroyed people. Not with fists, but with whispers in the right ears, paperwork slipped into the right hands. I forced myself to breathe evenly. "There is no conflict of interest," I said. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "So you deny there is any personal relationship between you and Mr. Cole?" The lie stuck in my throat. One word could save my career. One word could erase every late-night kiss, every whispered confession, every fragile step toward healing. But saying it would erase me too. I swallowed hard. "No, I don't deny it." For the first time, her mask cracked just slightly. Surprise flickered across her face. "So you admit it," she said carefully, as though savoring the words. "I admit I care about him," I replied, voice steady despite the storm inside me. "But that doesn't change my work ethic, my contributions, or my professionalism. If anyone thinks otherwise, that's their bias, not mine." She scribbled notes in the folder, her pen scratching like knives. "We'll review this further. For now, you're suspended pending investigation." Suspended. The word crushed me. Everything I had worked for, gone just like that. When I left the office, Ethan was waiting in the lobby. One look at my face and he knew. "They suspended me," I said flatly. Rage flared in his eyes. "He did this. My father." "Of course he did," I muttered, bitterness curdling in my mouth. "This is what he wanted all along. To ruin me." "No," Ethan said fiercely, grabbing my shoulders. "He won't win. Not this time." I wanted to believe him, but all I felt was exhaustion. "What are you going to do, Ethan? Fight him with angry words? He has money, power, connections. We're nothing compared to him." His grip tightened. "You're not nothing. You're everything. And I won't let him take you from me again." I shook my head, my throat thick. Maybe it's not about him taking me. Maybe it's about me realizing I was stupid to believe this could ever work. His face twisted, wounded. "Don't say that." But the truth spilled out before I could stop it. "You walked away once, Ethan. And now, even when you say you won't, the world is doing it for you. I can't survive losing you twice." Tears burned my eyes. I pulled free of his hands and walked out of the building, leaving him standing there in the ruins of us. The next few days blurred into nothing. My apartment felt smaller, colder. The silence pressed against me like a weight I couldn't shake. I tried not to think of him. I tried not to replay the look in his eyes when I left him in the lobby. I tried not to wonder if maybe I had been too harsh, too scared. But love doesn't listen to reason. Love lives in the cracks, in the spaces between silence. And every night, when I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I thought of him. On the fourth day, there was a knock at my door. I opened it, and there he was. Messy hair, dark circles under his eyes, but more alive than I'd ever seen him. "Caleb," he said, his voice breaking, "I need you to come with me. Ethan, please, just trust me. One more time." Despite myself, I stepped aside. He took my hand, pulling me out into the night. We drove across the city, neither of us speaking, the tension thick but electric. Finally, we stopped in front of a mansion I recognized from photos, his father's house. My chest tightened. "What are we doing here? Ending this?" Ethan said firmly. Before I could argue, he was already walking up the steps. And for the first time, I saw not just the boy I loved, but the man he had become, the man who was ready to fight. The confrontation was brutal. His father sat in a leather armchair, silver hair gleaming under the chandelier, his expression sharp and cruel. "So this is what you've chosen?" his father sneered, his gaze flicking toward me like I was dirt under his shoe. "Throwing away everything I built for you?" "For him?" Ethan stood tall, his shoulders squared. "No, father. I'm throwing away everything you tried to chain me with." "You're a disgrace," his father spat. "No," Ethan said, his voice steady. "I'm free." I stood frozen, my heart in my throat, as Ethan continued. "You ruined us once. I let you, but not anymore. Caleb deserves better. I deserve better. And if it costs me everything you own, so be it." His father's face darkened, fury simmering beneath his composure. "You'll regret this." Ethan met his gaze without flinching. "The only thing I regret is letting you control me for so long." The silence that followed was suffocating, but it was also liberating. For the first time, Ethan chose me, not his father, not fear. Me. When we left the mansion, the night air hit me like a wave. I turned to him, my chest heaving. "You just burned every bridge you had," I whispered. "I don't care," he said simply. "You should care, Ethan. That was your career, your future." "No," he interrupted, his hands cupping my face. "This is my future. You. And I'll fight for it every damn day if you let me." Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. Why now? Why not before? Because I wasn't strong enough then, he admitted, his voice raw. But I am now. And if you'll have me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. And in that moment, I knew the truth I had been running from all along. I still loved him. I had always loved him. And maybe love wasn't about the past, it was about the choice you made now. So I chose him. I kissed him under the streetlight, our tears mixing, our hearts breaking open to let something new grow. The fallout wasn't easy. HR called me back in, and Ethan walked with me, hand in mine, refusing to let go. I told the truth. So did he. And yes, there were consequences, reassignments, whispers, cold stares from people who thought they understood us. But there was also freedom. For the first time, I wasn't hiding. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of who I was or who I loved. And for the first time, Ethan and I were standing together, not against each other. Months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, we stood on the rooftop of our new apartment, coffee mugs in hand, the city sprawling beneath us. You ever think about how crazy this is? I asked, leaning against him. All the time, he said, kissing the top of my head. And you don't regret it? He looked at me, his eyes soft, steady, unshakable. The only thing I regret is not finding the courage sooner. I smiled, my chest warm. Well, better late than never. He laughed, pulling me closer. And as the sun rose over New York, painting the sky in gold, I realized something. We had been broken once, shattered even, but sometimes the pieces fit back together stronger than before. And this time we weren't letting go. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.